welcome to the FD Bar. I'm your host, Jack Jordan Naylor, and joining me, as always, is the one and only Mr. Jack Pickering. The new calendar is here, and we have not one, but two TBCs on the calendar. So let's chat about what they could be. The new Gen 4 regulations also been rubber stamped 800 horsepower cars, faster than Formula 2. Is that the right step for Formula E? Plus, who could replace Cassidy and Jaguar? We'll be taking your suggestions tonight. We can't do this show without you either, so make sure that you join Discord by hitting Discord in chat to have your say on the only FE fan shown. We can't do the show without you, and also hit that subscribe button. We are, Mr. Pico, we are on 1,049 subs. So someone tonight could be 1,050. So
I mean, I don't think that's a huge milestone compared to I think that's a huge milestone compared to the big 1K, but
yeah, no,
you know, it's still 1,050.
We're getting there, 50 away from 1,100, right? So
that's how maths works.
If you yeah, it does, doesn't it? That's exactly how maths works. If you are new here though, !Discord, you can come on. It's the only ever fan show, Formula E fan show, where you can come on and have your say. And hit the subscribe button as well. You know, it's free. We've got a lot to talk to you. We've got quite a packed show, and as I said, we can't do it without you. So make sure you join the waiting room. But let's start with the calendar, right? Actually, let's get it up first, and then we'll talk about it because I've got a little graphic.
Someone's been busy.
No, basically, Formula E allowed me to download it. So we start the season in Sao Paulo on December the 6th, Mexico. Then round 2 in January 10th, Miami, which is now the Hard Rock CAF F1 circuit, obviously a shortened version. Go on. You want to speak, Mr.
Yeah, no. I just want to interrupt because Chris Ryan's just said in chat. 150 almost old as Picco. The other is older than me. Jack's older than me. Like, why am I?
Anyway,
you're almost 30. I've still got a couple of years to go. Come on. Sorry. Proceed.
30 in like 2 weeks. Anyway, so Miami, which is in Hard Rock Stadium this time, so move from Homestead. That's in January 31st. Then we have the double header in Jeddah. Madrid, we go to Madrid, Jahama on March 21st. Then double header in Berlin, back to its kind of May slot. Then double header again in Monaco. Then these two TBCs, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. And Shanghai, Japan. I'm very excited about this one. It's July 25th, 26th because I'm going to go. Because I can get to go. This is brilliant. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And London rounds off the season in August, which we've kind of been crying out for. We've kind of been crying out for August to have a Formula E race, for the championship to kind of end in August. So I'm actually quite happy because now the season is a little bit longer, in a sense, and it's not as long of an off season, which I also think is really important for Formula E.
I think it's huge because August is that sort of month where most sport fans tend to twiddle their thumbs. It's not a very exciting month. Usually the Formula E season is over. Formula One are on their summer break. MotoGP are on their summer break. IndyCar is sort of coming to the end of their season, and so we do get a little bit of action. But yeah, so I get to spend the weekend before my birthday in London next year, so that'll be fun. My last I'll be turning 28 then.
Yeah. I would have already been 31.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about ages. Let's not talk about ages. As Toby put in chat there, it's first. Actually, no, Toby, there was a Soul season 8 that ended in you're 100%.
That ended in August.
Because he was there.
But I was out there. But yeah, no, August I think is a good sort of time for the Formula E season to end, and I think the fact that yes, we've gone back to the year, the 2 year sequence. So we got Sao Paulo just before Christmas. It's actually on my brother's birthday, so happy birthday, Jacob! You got you got the opening round of Formula E. He's not here. He's at work, so I can't even yell at him that. But yeah, it does sort of seem to me that I feel like we're going sort of a little bit back to. It wouldn't surprise me if the first race of Gen 4 is in January, like the year after, because we're moving to an August sort of end of season. But yeah, I think it sort of makes sense, because I think the first race of the year is the same day as the final qualifying of Formula One this year. So yeah.
But it was like how it was this season. Jesper in chat, right, is talking about the Gen 4 cars. And obviously, we haven't seen the Gen 4 car. Only one person that I know has seen the Gen 4 cars, and that is Mr. Nick Golding, who is here at 9 o'clock. So we do have Nick at 9.
And actually, that can I just add to because I did read Nick's article earlier about it, and
he's the biggest fan of Gen 4 I think I've ever
met. No. I just want to say I kind of understand why he was so tight-lipped.
Yeah.
Because I asked him a couple of weeks ago, is there going to be more downforce on the car, or will the Formula E car still be aimed to be low downforce? And it's sort of been revealed that there will be a high downforce setting and a low downforce setting.
Hilariously, I knew that.
Yeah. So I had no idea when I said that, and basically got it on the nose. So So I understand why Nick was so tight-lipped about that. But it just looks so exciting, and like I said in the last show, this is sort of like the last big leap for Formula E. We don't need to sort of increase the speeds after this. It needs to be. We need to do more range focused stuff, and I'm really hoping that from Gen 4 onwards we are going to get some of this range. And get longer races, because I feel like the series needs it, and with pit boost coming in as well, it sort of makes sense. I'd like to see a sprint with attack and then a feature race with pit boost for Gen 4. But yeah,
I made this a point in Discord, and because I've been on the fence about whether or not speed has been the right direction, and if it should be a range, and if this is too big of a jump, and I still have my reservations on that, don't get me wrong, but I think what a lot of people have forgotten about the speed of Formula E cars is that the series that we compare them to are running on slick tyres. And Formula E don't run on slick tyres. So we're 5 seconds off of Formula 2 time, but not on slick tyres. So if we were on slick tyres, do we take a second off? Are we 4 seconds? Then it makes the Gen 3 Evo car just a bit faster, right? And actually makes us think, actually, this car is not as slow as we thought. And maybe that might have changed some perception about it. So I think 5 seconds on a road tyre, effectively, away from an F2, is actually... it's not that bad, because if you had a slick tyre, well, could that be 2 seconds? Could that be 2.5, 3 seconds? And then, but this jump is significant, and what's significant, and we're going to dive into a little bit later when we speak to Tobias about 8:30 from eFormula News, is, is there room for a slick tyre? Because these times, as Jesper says that they're expecting, and Sebastian Buemi said, and we'll speak to Nick Golding as well, like so many plugs that we got to do, because he spoke in his podcast with Sebastian Buemi, and they're saying 115 to 118 around that segment. But again, that's not on slick tyres, that's on a road car tyre. So again, how much quicker could that be if we were on slick tyres? And then we're getting really close to F1 times potentially. So yes, I think the speed is probably a good thing, but I think it's also really important that we remember that we're not running on slick tyres, so it could make the Gen 4 car, and even the Gen 3 Evo car that we have now, more impressive.
Yeah, I think I'm very much in the sort of slicks brigade, especially as we are getting a monsoon tyre in Gen 4, so that we can have races in wet conditions and not have the drivers moan and whinge as they have about the Hancocks so far this season. But I think if you look back to Bridgestone tyres, they were quite well known for being quite durable in Formula One back in the day, and also they ran during the groove eras of Formula One. So I think I'm looking forward to having the Bridgestons coming in. I think I think it's going to be so cool. But yeah, no, yeah. I can't wait to see what Gen 4 has in store. And yes, I would absolutely love to see slicks.
The only problem I have before we read Jesper's message with slick tires is money, right? So the problem is, if you have a slick tire, we can't go from a slick to a monsoon tire for wet weather, right? Because it'll be like a full wet on intermediates, it'll overheat or whatever, and it won't be very good. So then we won't have a wet tire. So we kind of need. So then it's having a slick tire, then an intermediate tire, and then a full wet, which would be the monsoon tire.
I don't see why we'd need that. Yes, the tires would overheat, but they just have to. They just have to do it like that. We see in MotoGP there is not an intermediate tire. They have the slicks or they have the wets, and there's no sort of in between. And so I don't see why we can't have slicks, and then the wet monsoon tire.
I just think it's one of those. It's one of those where it's like you're on the periphery, especially with how fast we're going now. I know MotoGP and they'll go really fast too, but you don't want. I don't know, and there's a lot of people, and I do want to get some callers in, because before we have Toby on, but a lot of people have been saying, what does that mean for tracks if we're going that fast? How does this affect the tracks that we go to? Do we need to go to grade 1 tracks where there's more runoff and there's more, and is that going to be harder for? And there's a lot of great questions that have come up around safety elements of racing at those speeds and the tracks that we go to. And I know I posed it to Alberto about Tokyo, and they're hopeful with Tokyo that they can extend it, and so forth, so we don't lose it. And that was always a problem. You go this fast and all of a sudden, but then IndyCar do it, right? So then I'd like to know what IndyCar rules are, because when they go to like Detroit, that new Detroit track, for example, I used to love Bellevue.
Dreadful.
Right, but I love the old one. Yeah,
it was so good.
I love that track.
The new one, I honestly, I think it's worse than.
But
90% of the Formula E tracks that we've ever done.
But they go to these but they're quite tight, twisty. Toronto as well is another one, right?
I like Toronto. Toronto's actually a good circuit.
Yeah, but my IndyCar knowledge is poor. I know a couple of tracks, but I know they're the street cars. I don't massively watch IndyCar. But I'd like to know their rules, because obviously they're really fast, and when you turn on IndyCar, it doesn't look like there's a lot of runoff, to be honest with you. Right, we have to just stop for 2 seconds because Jesper has dropped. I don't know what that is, but 129.
It's Swedish krona. So,
I don't know what 129 Swedish krona is in UK money, but even the fact that
it's about a tenner.
Wow.
Because
you should know. You're like the Swedish. Tack så mycket, Jesper. So, firstly, thank you. Massively appreciate it. If you're not in the Discord, by the way, get in the Discord. Like, what are you doing? If you don't have one, make one. He says, we don't know how Pitbull's power yet. I would love for it to be even higher with that regen power of 700 kilowatts, maybe 1,000 kilowatts or even 1,200 kilowatts. Who knows? That could fix the range issue, Jack. Potentially, yes. Pitbull's, you go on, Pico, because you have range.
Yeah. Currently, it's 10%. So I'm not sure if we've got like a figure in terms of how. In terms of like the battery capacity, because the 700 so the 600 kilowatts of power is the power output. So that's so it's how we do 350 in qualifying at the moment, and then 300 in the race, and the 350 also for attack mode. And so it wouldn't be done that way, but that's the thing. I'm not sure. I haven't really properly I should have probably done my own work and had a look at these Gen 4 stats earlier. But
we've got Nick Golding to do all that. So that's not the end of the world.
Currently at the moment, races, most of the races have 38.5 kilowatts of power for the drivers to use over the course of the race, which means that when they plug in halfway through the race, they get 3.85 kilowatts of energy to go off and do and utilise in the next part of the race. And so it'll all depend on how much, how big the capacity is of the battery.
Okay.
So yeah.
Right. Let's take some calls. Let's get Nikki in because Nikki was first in. So let's get some calls in. Nikki, welcome to the FE bar.
Much.
How are you? What would you like to discuss?
Pardon?
What would you like to discuss?
Just very there's some new places there, and
on the calendar.
I'm just really excited. To be fair,
what excites you the most?
Probably going to Miami and Madrid, and all the new places we're going to.
So Miami and Madrid, at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even talked about the TBCs and what they could be, which is quite funny.
Did you say it was going to be half of the track, or is it going to be the full F1 track?
It will be a truncated version of the Formula One
probably
circuit,
be very
which will probably be the same
to what the Evo sessions was.
Yeah, it will either be the same layout, or they might extend down through the full first sector of the Formula One circuit. They won't use what is sort of the west part.
Okay.
No, the east part of the circuit. I always get west and east mixed up. So either it will be the full circuit all the way around, halfway down the back straight, and then they'll go back up. Then they'll go north, and then rejoin halfway down the long DRS straight, or they will do a hairpin out of turn 3 like they did with the Evo sessions, and then go through the
cool.
back up that way.
I also want to say something about the tyres as well. I don't want a tyre in the future that's going to make certain wet races boring, because obviously with what happened the last race where there was no grip and people were going off, I just found those sorts of races boring, to be fair.
It was boring. I don't think I think Shanghai was... The safety car start kind of ruined Shanghai, I think, because they weren't close to each other, and the Hancocks don't have grips, and it's been the biggest talking point about the Hancocks not having any grip in the wet. And I think in Shanghai we saw that, attack mode didn't work. They really struggled, and we kind of got away with it in Monaco and Tokyo, maybe because of the way that the tracks were, but Shanghai...
Because they're more street circuits, aren't they? They're more pedestrian, as Monaco is, or whatever, do you know what I mean? Because I don't want to be watching races where it's like that, because I do find those sorts of races boring. I want a tyre that's going to make races exciting for me.
Of course, but, you will always... It's sport, and that's the beauty of sport. I turn up... We turn up to football matches, and it could be a 0-0, the most boring game, or you could turn up and witness a 5-4. So you never know what you're going to get, right? And that's live sports. So even with a dry race, it could be boring. For example, you could argue that half the peloton races have been boring because you don't need to watch it until the last 4 laps.
I'm like,
right?
As you know, I'm with Jack on that. I don't like the peloton style. I've always said that, and I still don't like it. So there's many reasons for a boring race, and I just think in Shanghai, but Bridgestone are just bringing these monsoon tyres effectively, right? So we don't have the red flag situations that we had in Shanghai and that we had in London, so we can effectively just go racing, right? And we could never stop going racing. And also as well, on the point that, like Jack was saying, we have 2 lots of tyres. I thought for Formula E they only had 1 tyre for sustainability.
Yes.
So wouldn't that go against what Formula E was about if we have more than 1 tyre?
Yes and no. Yes, in terms of sustainability, and I think that's why we won't do the slick, because there's too many tyres then, and then you're not using them. The all-weather tyre, right, is effectively going to be used in the dry and in intermediate weather rain. Whereas we don't want red flags. It's not good to have red flags and large stoppages. Therefore, we have to have a monsoon tyre to deal with that, to stop us having those red flags. So yes, we are making a tyre, but those tyres, it's not like going to be in F1 where these tyres, even the wet tyres, they get pushed around, but it's still not going to be as many tyres as in Formula 1 being pushed around. So, you know, and I'm sure these monsoon tyres, even if they're used, right, because they'll probably be able to be used again in a race.
Okay.
Because if these all-weather tyres, right, so they used to bring them, and then it'll be the same tyre that probably race would do the practice session, and then the new set would come on. So that had done like all qualifying, and then they brought it, and then it gets rid. So that's how they keep it sustainable and so forth. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that, Pico. I feel like I've talked there for ages.
Sorry, no, I've been looking at stuff. So yeah,
no problem.
He's been researching on the job.
Sorry,
That's what he's
been
doing. Researching on the job.
Yeah,
I thought it
sorry,
was.
I've been in my
It's all
own.
right, Jack, no problem.
Sorry, no. I was just looking at it, and so from what I've found, and I'm not sure if it's completely accurate, but from what I found on Reddit is that the capacity for Gen 4 is 55 kilowatts. So which is a few more kilowatts more than
what we have now.
Okay,
52,
no. It's a few more kilowatts more than what we had in Gen 2.
52.
But the thing is, we've been capping the amount of usable energy in the races for Gen 3. So I'm not sure if that's an improvement or not, but I think 55 kilowatts of power is still good. I think we could
it's
still.
just over half, isn't it? Just over half.
Yeah, no, that is almost 1.5 times the amount. So if we're using 55 kilowatts of power, are we going to get 90-minute races next from Gen 4? If so, yay!
I doubt it. I doubt it very highly.
I very much doubt it, mate. I think it'll still be
I know.
Nikki,
boring, right?
We're going to let you go.
Thank you very much, fellas.
No worries.
Speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
All right, bye.
So remember that if you want to come and have your say, you can join the waiting room. Before we get Toby in, let's talk about these TBCs then, because from what I had, I was thinking Madrid would have been one of these TBCs, and we were only thinking that we were going to have one TBC, but we've ended up with two.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Where do you think we are? I've got some background information, right?
So
my sources, but what do you think?
So one of those dates is the date that has been on the calendar for the last few years as the Jakarta E-Prix.
Correct.
So so logic would say that is the Jakarta E-Prix.
Yep.
Now the other one that has been highly touted as coming back is Sanya.
Yep.
Which is so logic would say those are the two that would make sense to be on the calendar for next season. And I mean, like, I've voiced my opinion about Sanya.
Do you think, because what they've done here, Formula E have done this before, so they've announced it and they've gone record-breaking 18 race, but then remember we had that and then we lost one, so it wasn't a record-breaking season, and now it's a record-breaking season again, but
we still got 16 races.
But we might not have that amount of races.
I think these two are more realistically going to be filled. I can't. Whereas last year with the race that was supposed to be in Thailand, we weren't 100% sure if that one was going to happen. Whereas from what I'm aware of, Sanya has been mentioned by every man and his dog, and Jakarta, that date makes sense. The only thing that would be interesting is that we'd be going from China to Indonesia back to China again, and so that I could be wrong, but and I'll be honest, I am not the most knowledgeable person to do it.
To be honest with you, I'm on the same wavelength as you, and I can't say too much because a lot of what I've heard has been off the record, so I can't say what I know. But you're right. What scares me, right, in terms of the calendar, is if Sanya, we expect Sanya to be one of those TBCs, and you're 100% right that the spot that was there for Jakarta was is that same date. So you'd assume that would be the Jakarta E-Prix, right? Or some, because that's been the slot that we go to Jakarta. Why that's a TBC, confusing because it's already on the calendar. But anyway, if we go to Sanya in that May 30th slot, then we don't race again till July. So long. You're going to China and then you're coming back, and then you're going back to China. So it's like, and that's a long gap. So everyone's going to fly home and then fly back to China. It's not like it's when we were thinking about Shanghai and Sanya, we were hoping for a 1-2 week, a back-to-back race, something like that, where you stay in China, right, basically, and you just move it from one location to the other. To then do X, Y, and Z, it seems a bit Air Mile thing.
Well, on that, I mean, Formula One, obviously, because all the FIA things got announced today, and Formula One announced their calendar.
Yeah.
And one of the main
things,
and one of the main things that has been criticised is the fact that the Canadian Grand Prix is going to clash with the Indianapolis 500 in May next year. And what's so intriguing about that is that it could have been easily fixed, because there's a 3-week gap between Miami and Canada. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, but anyway,
what will come of that?
That does know a thing or two, maybe a bit more about the calendar.
Probably a lot more.
Is Tobias Wirtz from eFormula News? I've dragged him in a bit early. I've just switched the wrong thing off. Lovely that. Not pleasant. But Tobias, can you hear us first and foremost? I hope you can. He can. Welcome to the show. I haven't changed the bottom bit, so I'll do that now. What have you got as part of your news on the calendar?
Hi guys.
Hello. We can hear you.
Yeah, perfect. Not much more than you already spoke about. The one thing that I heard is that Jakarta maybe could switch the date with the race that is planned to be in Sanya. Another point, Sanya is on the Isle of Hainan, and that's quite some kilometers away from Shanghai. So possibly it's so maybe it's possible that they go to Sanya first and then to Jakarta and then back to China. It's not that big difference, but what I think it's quite unrealistic, to be honest, is that there's just a 2-week gap between the Jakarta race and the Shanghai one. So I think they will switch those two, so that Jakarta gets the earlier slot, and then Sanya at the
gets the later slot. That makes sense, because then June, July, it's not that makes sense to me. But yeah, Jakarta. So you're also in the elements that you think that second TBC slot could be Jakarta.
Think so. It's not the reason why it's TBC is because the contract is ending this year, as far as I know, and the extension of the contract depends on if the race is economical for this for the local promoter. Only if they earn money with this, they will do it another year.
So basically, their race depends on this season's race.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you think that that there might be an announcement potentially in 2 weeks' time saying that Jakarta is back for next year, or do you think they're going to hold out, make sure that the other TBC race that we expect to be Sanya is confirmed first, and then announce them both together?
I think so. They will announce both together. Because those have to be confirmed again by the WMSC.
Yep.
So
that won't be till October.
Yeah, the latest, but that's not far away from the beginning of the season.
Yeah, but
difficult.
Yeah,
But the good thing for them is though is that that race isn't until June of the following year, so it's like you've got plenty of time. It's not like it's happening in a couple of weeks' time, so that's good.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk Gen 4.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure Toby's tech time. What do you think? Because obviously, I've gone on the record and saying that I'm not sure this was 100% the right way. In terms of speed, is it too much speed? Should we be focusing on other areas? But then I've forgot my even argument of slick tires for the Gen 3 Evo car, so that would make it slightly faster compared to the lap times that we're comparing the other racing series to. But this is a significant shift. All-wheel drive, they're 600 kilowatt, 700 kilowatt regen. Active aero, basically a low downforce, high downforce. And what do you know? What can you tell us in terms of the Gen 4 regulations and how it could work in a couple of years' time?
Yeah, as always, it depends. We have two different packages regarding aerodynamics, and it depends on how Formula E wants to use it. One possible solution is they use the high downforce during qualifying with the 600 kilowatts of power.
Yep.
And in the race, they will use the low downforce one because they want to have longer races, about an hour or something like that. And this is not possible with the high downforce package because higher downforce means higher energy consumption.
Yep.
So even if the battery will have a bigger capacity, it will not be possible to race more than an hour with a higher downforce package and that much power.
Yep.
One possible other solution could be that they reduce the power in the races.
Yep.
So that they are using just 400 kilowatts of power during the race, for example, and something like attack mode with 500 kilowatts of power, something like that, possibly. But it depends how they want to do it. Another thing I heard some a while ago was that Formula E is planning to introduce sprint races during a doubleheader. So at the moment we have a doubleheader with pit boost and one race without pit boost. So it could be a possible solution that they are doing high downforce sprint races, about 25 to 30 minutes, with a high downforce package on one day, and on the other day the low downforce package with a race about 70 minutes, 75 minutes, something like that.
Ooh.
It depends. These are the options they have on the table, and I don't know which ones they prefer, but these are solutions that are possible.
What scares me from the sprint race option, right? Now, you said there 25 minutes to 30 minutes of, running. I know people 9 times out of 10 pay for both days as a fan, but if you only pay for one day and you came for the sprint, is that what you're paying for? So because I feel like a race which is you only come for one day and the race is 25 minutes seems a bit, and when the other race is 75 minutes is a bit, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure, it depends. Possibly.
That's my only problem I see with it. The fact that we're going for 75 minutes sounds perfect to me. This is what we've been crying out for a long time. And it also, puts the range ideas that we've had, that even... I think if we could do a 45-minute race or a 40-minute race with the high downforce package on a Saturday and then a 75-minute race, I think that, to me, I'm cool with that, because that's what a traditional Formula E race looked like. But I'm just worried if it was a 25-minute race, it seems like for
sure. But high downforce races only make sense if you use the full amount of power.
Okay.
From my point of view, it doesn't make sense to have high downforce and just use 400 kilowatts of power.
Yep.
It's possible, of course, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't show the performance of the cars. That's what they want to do. They want to show the performance of the electric cars with a high downforce package. And this only makes sense when using the maximum amount of energy.
Yeah, because that's what I wanted.
Possible.
When you said there an idea of racing at 400 kilowatts and then having, I thought, does that go against? That was literally the question I had. Does that go against Formula E's idea of this series already? Because we're supposed to show how fast these cars are, but then we're cutting them to just a little bit faster than what the Gen 3 Evo car was.
Possibly, but I think when all those comparisons to F2 were made, they were only talking about qualifying lap times.
Yep. Not
race. And I think yes, absolutely. And I think that's what Formula E want to show, that the cars in qualifying are able to do F2 lap times in Monaco.
Yep.
And to be honest, there's a point I have to add.
Yep.
A German colleague of mine, Robert Seiwert from Motorsport Magazine, was talking to Jeff Dodds in Shanghai.
Yep.
And Jeff Dodds announced that Formula E is planning to introduce slick tires in Gen 4, but not in season 13, in season in season 15, in the second cycle of Gen 4 to show the whole performance of the Gen 4 car. Sustainability is not such a big topic now. They have made so many things regarding sustainability that they are able to use two different sets of tires. So we will see slick tires, but unfortunately it will take some time, I think.
Of course, because obviously
I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, but that makes sense though, because Bridgestone haven't been told to make a slick tire at this point, or design a slick tire for Formula E. So therefore, it would have to they'd have to be told and have enough time to prepare it. So for the and that would be for Gen 4 Evo, right? Effectively, if there is going to be a Gen 4 Evo.
I think so, yeah.
So if there's a Gen 4, so for the Gen 4 Evo, then which you'd expect maybe another step somewhere along the lines, maybe. Seeing how Gen 4 goes, and
they have to.
So it's scary. It's mad, isn't it? Like, imagine like we started this series 10 years ago. No, 11 years.
12.
Whenever this series started.
12 was when they started like properly motoring and getting the plans together.
Right. Yeah. Well, 2014, right, was when we started. So we're coming into 11 years of this series, and to think that. By the end of 2030 that we could be on pace with Formula 1 or a couple of seconds slower than Formula 1 is mad. Like the jump has been incredible.
For sure, but the question is if the racing will be still as good as it's now.
Yes.
And I'm not sure, to be honest.
And that's a really good point, and it's the last point I will probably keep you on. A lot of people have been saying that obviously we go to these tight and twisty circuits and, can we do that? And then it's all about funding. And I feel like this is Formula E's biggest step and the biggest risk that it is taking, simply because they have to get it right. Financially, this Gen 4 car is going to cost them a lot of money, right? And if the viewing figures don't come in, if the fans don't come in, if the fans don't take, new fans I'm talking about, to the Gen 4 and the TV prices and the if that doesn't work, I feel like we're in trouble, because yes, we're going to have to race on tracks. We're going to need to make sure we have adequate safety runoff, things that we think about in now, but because the cars aren't as fast, we're not too concerned about. But we're going to have to make bigger changes once we get to Gen 4.
Yeah, it's not a must because they are electric cars, and the FIA and Formula E can do some things that are not possible with combustion engine powered cars. They can reduce the maximum power output for specific specific racetracks.
Yep.
So maybe it's possible to go again in Tokyo.
Yep.
600 kilowatts of power is way too much for this track, but why not go in there with just 350 or 400? They're doing it now with 350 in qualifying, for example. So that's possible. And why not? The FIA already has the possibility to reduce the capacity of the batteries for the race. For example, in Tokyo and London. Why not reduce the maximum power for the cars? Could be possible.
I get that point, and I fully respect that. Like, I think that's probably the way Formula E will go in terms of managing the calendar and the stresses and trying to keep races like Tokyo on the calendar, Sao Paulo on the calendar, and so forth. The tracks that work really well for Formula E. So that is definitely an option. But I think what these new fans and these F1 people might come back and say was, well, hey, you promised us a F2 speed like race, even though they didn't think that. It's qualifying, it hasn't been said, but because they can do these speeds, they're going to expect that the race will be similar, and then therefore you're not as fast. So that could be a challenge, potentially, that Formula E might face with trying to convert these fans across.
Possibly, but to be honest, look at an F1 race, for example. The lap times in the first 5-10 laps, they are 4, 5, 6 seconds slower than in the qualifying.
Yes, because of full fuel, 100%.
For sure. And who cares?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Brilliant point. It's very true. And you are right. It's true. I can't bat them away. So fingers crossed that these new fans, because we're praying that these new fans come. That's what they're happy with.
Okay.
Pico, anything to add before we let Tobias go?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, it just everything that I've just heard just genuinely makes me sound excited. It genuinely makes me feel excited for Gen 4. I think. Obviously, like, slick tires brought a smile to my face. Like, I know that's a few years off yet, but yeah, I like the idea of having a sprint race. I mean, I know that I've said it like time and time again that we sort of need to be the world's superbike to F1's MotoGP, and whether that means more races on a weekend and trialing different formats, and because we don't do the same number of races that Formula One do. And I don't think we will get anywhere near sort of that anytime soon. I know that, like, I hope so. I know that, like, the ideal is 18 weekends with a handful of double headers, but I mean, like, I feel like Gen 4's coming, and I feel like let's have a reset. Let's change some things up, and honestly, it just sounds so exciting right now.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to add. I'm gonna spoil something.
Go on.
The new Gen 4 car will have a rear wing.
Ooh. Love
what
that.
Type of rear wing?
Yeah, we had in Formula E just in Gen 1 the rear wing, but Gen 4 will have
a rear wing. Have you seen the pictures?
In the high downforce package, of course, proper rear wing.
Proper rear wing. That's amazing, isn't it? It's a bit like IndyCar. So our low downforce will be like an IndyCar oval car, and the high downforce like the street car.
Probably something like this. Yes.
Yeah. So that's quite drastic as well. Actually, in terms of the racing, that's quite drastic in terms of a change. So therefore, you can actually see how, with the low downforce package, how we can have these longer races. But then with IndyCar, obviously, it's obviously grip is big difference between low. That's why they obviously don't run it. So it'd be interesting to see what Bridgestone could do to make sure that we have decent grip in those low downforce races and we're not spinning off every 5 minutes. But Tobias, loved it as usual. Thank you so much for taking your time to come speak to us. And
thank you guys for having me.
Hopefully we'll speak to you after Jakarta.
You're out in Jakarta.
You're in Jakarta. Well, you can text
I will
us.
be in Jakarta. Yes. I have to check when my flight goes back. If I will be able to take part here. I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think so. I wouldn't recommend it either. Enjoy Jakarta. I forgot completely about that. Enjoy Jakarta, and we'll
plug his Instagram or wherever you want to find him on eFormula News, and so you can keep up to date with everything Tobias does in Jakarta.
All I'll say about Jakarta is that just be ready for the humidity.
Yes.
It's bad. It's bad.
So I just checked it. I will be back in Germany about noon on Monday. So maybe it's possible for me.
Maybe it's possible. Well,
see how jet lagged you are.
To be honest, I don't know, but I give my best.
We'll see how jet lagged you are. But thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a nice evening, guys. Enjoy. See you.
Bye. What an absolute legend that man is. What an absolute legend. The insight that we got there. That's what I love. That's one of my favorite things about this show, is that we get to just promote these journalists that, you know, sometimes don't get the credit. That's the word. The credit that they deserve, and Tobias is one of them, and I love that he's getting in. Right, we have 10 minutes.
We get one more person in before we go to a break.
I don't know, because we do need to go to a break, because I've got to change that lower graphic, which I actually mucked up for Tobias, which I do apologise about.
Yeah. I need a drink. My mouth is so dry. So
you've got Natalie, Nikki, Ricardo, Saz, Seb. Not Nikki.
We've had Nikki.
Natalie, Ricardo. Ricardo's just come in.
I saw something in chat that says that Nikki has until that Natalie has till 9 o'clock. So should we get Natalie in now?
We'll get Natalie in then.
Yeah, because.
And if you want to come on the show,
I might be wrong.
If you want to come on the show, !! Discord, and you can come and have your say.
Right.
Hi, Natalie.
Hello, you've caught me at the right time. The staff room's completely empty.
Splendid.
Fantastic.
What would you like to talk about?
What a calendar we've got next year.
Oh, it does look good.
Highlights?
It does look promising. What are you looking forward to?
Highlights?
London doesn't clash with F1.
No, that's
finally.
True. That's true. That is very true.
And also mid-August as well. It's going to be interesting.
It'll be wet, probably. Yeah. It rains in
August. No, in Britain.
It's not on my birthday, so that means it won't rain. So, because it always rains wherever I am on my birthday. The only year that it didn't was when I was in America in 2017, seeing the eclipse. It even rained in Malta in 2015 in August.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That is incredible. Knowing, because that's where I'm
from. It always rains wherever I am on my birthday. So at least it's not on my birthday. It's a few days beforehand. So yeah.
That is incredible. Obviously we're having some ideas that it could be Sanya and Jakarta for these TBCs, but where would you like these TBCs to be? You know, if you saw those TBCs, what did you think? Where did you think we'd be going?
You know, I'm pretty open for a return to Sanya. It's just the last time we raced there was Gen 2, so I think they need to make the track a little bit wider in places if they can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's possible because it's and the reason why I've been so anti Sanya and everything is that because it is in the middle of nowhere. Sanya Sanya is on Hainan Island. Is it Hainan Island? I think it's called.
I think so.
Yeah, and so the city of Sanya is on the west coast of the island, and the little area of the circuit is next to a resort on the east of the island, about 40-50 kilometers out. So it's another sort of Miami, but it's not. It's a street circuit and not a permanent circuit. But yeah, but yeah, it means but they can widen. I know that they can widen at least the first sort of sector of that lap. But when they get back out onto the roads, it might be a little bit touch and go.
Yeah, I'm also intrigued about how they're going to make the Hard Rock Stadium circuit work.
I think they could just run the same thing as the Evo sessions, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did.
I'm looking forward to it, to be honest, because
that could be another F1 track in Gen 4, by the way. That could be the full circuit.
Yeah.
So what are your concerns with the Miami circuit then? That you're a little bit hesitant about?
I'm not concerned as such, but I'm intrigued to see how it's going to work with it being a Formula One track. And obviously, FE cars are a bit bigger. So I'm just intrigued to see how it's going to work.
I think it'll be fine. So remember, we spoke to Maximilian Gunther, right? He was on the show, and he'd obviously driven the Miami track, and he said they felt it would be that track would be all right. It would be quick times, because I think they did like a 1:11 or
They
something
did a
like
10.
that.
I think the fastest time was a 1:06.
So is that at full power?
Yeah, full power was 1:06.
It's a bit
1:11 was I think that was the 300 times or something like that. So.
Or the muckabout times.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit on the Berlin-esque lap times in terms of what we see there. I think so. Max said there may be room to extend it slightly, but I don't know how much. I can't really remember the Evo track, to be honest with you. It was all behind closed doors, so it was really hard to know what happened.
Hard to gather, yeah.
So basically, with the Miami circuit, is that the track is becoming a year-round circuit. It's not going to be a facility that only turns up for
F1.
For F1,
basically,
and so that's why we're running it in January. But the back half of the circuit, which is with the
chicane and the long straight,
the second half of the back straight, into that horrible little chicane underneath the bridge. That bit won't be used apart from Formula One. Right. They're then creating multiple different truncated layouts of that, and one of them that we saw was the Miami Evo Sessions one, where they do a hairpin just after turn 3, do a little bit of the back straight, then go into a chicane and go back up to the main DRS zone. However, one of them does include the fake harbour section. So I believe, and I want to say there's 4 or 5 different layouts that they can choose from, but it's primarily the same circuit for each of them. Some of them don't have the little hairpin at the end. They just do they cut out beforehand. Some of them have got some of it's got the fake harbour section, and so there are 4 or 5 different options for Formula E, and I think that they will use next year the same one that they used for the Evo Sessions, and it wouldn't surprise me if in Gen 4 they extend to do the full fake marina section.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right then, Natalie, we'll let you go. Thank you for coming on. Massively appreciate it, and hopefully the rest
enjoy
of
the rest of your shift. Yeah.
Oh well. I don't start till 9.
Have us. Well, that's in 2 minutes. If the shop floor's closed or wherever you are, just have us in your ears. Just have us in your ears. Right.
I've got 2 hours until the first plane comes down on arrivals. So.
There you go. So have us in your ears and happy days.
Exactly.
Right. Have a good night. Hope it all goes well.
Cheers, Natalie.
Well, see you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Adios.
Bye-bye. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we will take a small break, and hopefully on the other side we'll be joined at Nick at 9 to get a bit more information about what's going on with the calendar and so forth, and then we will take your calls all the way up till 10 o'clock. So if you would like to get on !Discord, if you're not in our Discord, and come on and have your say, we are going to be talking also a little bit about Jaguar and Nick Cassidy. We do want to get your thoughts. So if you think you would like to see what driver you would like to see in that car, come and tell us.
It's not as important, but if you do want to tell us, by all means, calendar's more important.
Calendar's important. As Gen 4, if you want to say, but if you want to come talk about that, that is a conversation that I'm willing to have, because I'd like to get some content on that. So if you want to come tell me who you think, we will be talking about that. We'll probably discuss that right at the end of the show between ourselves, but we will. But if you want to come and have your say on that,
keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. We'll see you after the break.
Keep it in mind. See you later.
We're here, Nick at 9. What a man, as it says in his little intro. How are you, Nick?
I am tired. I think I'll probably sound it. It's been an eventful day. Got to be said, a day full of Formula E news, which I may or may not have known for a little while. So the fact it's finally in the open and that it can be discussed is a bit of a relief. And yeah, it's been a fun day. I think it's fair to say.
Mate, I'm delighted. I'm going to Tokyo next year. I'm delighted.
He's already he saw the calendar
Done.
and decided that.
I said to you, if it's in the summer holidays, I'm going, and it's in the summer holidays. Like,
fair enough.
I would have been off for a couple of days before I even go, so we finished a week before, so I'm there. Tokyo, I'm there. I'm actually buzzing. I told my kids today. I was like, I'm going to Tokyo. They thought I was going right now because I'm only 3 years old. I was like, no, I'm not going right now.
They're only 3. Have you been downgraded?
No, that's not true. You don't get downgraded. I asked to
you were
teach that.
teaching like 7-year-olds.
Yeah, I asked to teach that.
Before.
I asked to teach that. Anyway, moving on. We spoke to Tobias, and I know you've worked incredibly hard on the calendar story, and you know, I want to kind of get your views on these 2 TBCs. I'm wary that, you know, Formula E have done it again in terms of saying a record-breaking 18 calendar season, and then one of these TBCs doesn't seem to always like turn up, and you're like, why say that? Why say that? But you know, generally, do you think these 2BCs could potentially work, and we do get an 18 calendar 2BCs? I don't know what I said. Do you think it could happen, or you know? And we thought Madrid would be one, but Madrid was on the calendar.
Okay, so a few things to kind of unravel there. So let's start with the TBCs, and I'll mention a couple other points. So having spoken to Formula E co-founder Alberto Longo this week, the 2 TBCs, as I've understood it, and obviously based on sources that I have in the paddock, it's under my understanding that the first TBC, not the second, the first one is Sanya in China, which means that we would be going from China, away from China, then back to China for Shanghai.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense.
My understanding is that the first TBC will be Sanya in Shanghai, which Sanya in China, should I say, which looks pretty likely. It's looking pretty good, of course. There's still homologation things to go underway, because obviously it's going to be some tweaks compared to when Effie was last there, obviously. And the second one, according to my understanding, is going to be Jakarta. However, that's the one there's more question marks around, because there's still a deal needing to be struck. So Alberto is very confident that both will be sorted, so that's good news. In terms of other things he said, so using the Miami International Auto, that's a multi-year deal. Nice. So that won't be a one and done. It also means that obviously that venue will feature for Gen 4, which I think is very, very interesting. Harama, I'll be honest, whilst again that's something that I was aware about, it will be interesting. I mean, I guess, you know, at Pico, you can vouch, of course, for obviously us doing pre-season testing together last year. It's a cool venue, don't get me wrong, very old school. Hospitality wise, it's going to need a lot of work. Grandstand wise, it's minimal, so I'm concerned how many fans you'll get through the door. I think for a one and done, it'll be interesting, but obviously FE quite clearly, this was more its attempt to get a race back in Spain. Of course, we've not raced there since Valencia 2021, if my memory is correct. Yeah. So we know that FE are wanting certain other venues in Spain. One of which, of course, being in Barcelona, the venue I can never pronounce. And
that one.
Yeah, I can never pronounce it, but you know the one I'm going on about. Yep. I also wonder in the back of my head if the whole reason as well for Harama, maybe are Formula E interested in using Madry Ring or whatever it's going to be called when it's officially unveiled. I suspect so. I'd be very, very surprised if they don't want that. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's an exciting calendar.
It is a very, very much exciting calendar. Let's talk about something else that you love.
I just want to throw something in there quick, because obviously you mentioned that Harama was pre-season testing last year because of Valencia was flooded out, and they did a fantastic job at moving everything last minute. Last year, obviously, we got the announcement that pre-season testing was on certain dates. and we haven't had it this year. Is that just because
that was a good point.
we're not sure whether it's going to be Valencia or Jarama, or they're still trying to work out dates, or do we have like a date in the diary and they didn't just publicly announce it?
So this shows how good journalist I am. As far as I'm aware, it's Valencia, and I know the date.
Good.
However, it's completely skipped my mind.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
Is it in November?
Yeah,
No, it has to be in
It
November.
is. To be honest, my mind has gone blank. If you give me a second, I'll look up my
No,
notes.
I'll talk and you look it up. That's how.
But yes,
that's
as
how
far as well, basically, long story short, the dates which have been reported by obviously Sam Smith from the Racer Formulary Notebook, yes, that is the ones that I'm aware of. But yeah, so it'll be Valencia.
Yeah, I did think it would be Valencia because that's where they got their
I miss
holdings.
Valencia. I missed Valencia last year. And I don't get me wrong, that week was great apart from the end of that week. But yeah, I'm looking. If we're in Valencia, sign me up. I'm definitely there. I miss that place.
Well, if it's in November, then you can definitely go because I won't be there.
We put it this way: they've announced the women's test. It'll be a few days before that, obviously.
Yep. Okay, cool. Let's talk about your other favorite thing, Gen 4. Because
yes, Gen 4.
It has raised, I must admit, from your article and people just comments round your article on social media, it seems to have raised eyebrows. Like, I know we've had discussions and debate about this, but I have been actually quite shocked about how the eyebrows have been raised by a lot of people in the motorsport sort of community of fans. And then this may generally work. It may generally draw people to Formula E.
This is kind of... if Gen 4 fails, then nothing's going to work, to put it simply. I mean, I had a really good chat earlier this week in a podcast for Racing News 365 with Sebastian Buemi, and we spoke about the progression from Gen 1, and of course, he's seeing the simulations of the Gen 4, and he's obviously seeing what it looks like. There's only so much of that I can discuss, but in terms of the performance of the car, obviously, as revealed today, obviously, it's going to have 600 kilowatts of power output, which is equivalent to 800 brake horsepower. It will be permanently four-wheel drive as well. So, Whereas now we only have four-wheel drive when they're in the 350 kilowatt mode, we're now going to be fully four-wheel drive, which is a massive boost. We're also going to see 700 kilowatts of recharging capability. I'm really intrigued because, as Seb put it, this is now... Gen 1, according to, the way Seb put it, Gen 1 was about getting this product going, getting the championship alive. Gen 2 was about starting to work on the durability side of things so that you actually only needed one car to complete a race. Gen 3 was more the same, proving that the cars can go for a longer distance and still, regenerate energy, whereas Gen 3 Evo has been the first Formula E car based more on the performance side of things. The way he puts it is that FE's proven that we have the technology to do long races, 45 minutes plus we've seen in the last few rounds, but it's about ultimate performance, were his words. This is FE's time to show that, we can have a fast car. Obviously it's going to be a bigger car as well, and the times that he was saying is that what he's heard from the simulations so far, it's looking around a 1 minute 15, 1 minute 18 second lap around Monaco.
Yep.
Which is obviously around 10 seconds faster than we saw about a month ago. But what's crucial is that's a good few seconds quicker than F2. What's the most interesting point is with F1 getting slower for their new race in 2026 is that in Monaco, they're likely going to drop by, I reckon, potentially 2 to 3 seconds. It's going to be really, really close. But it's one of those things, isn't it, where we can sit here and talk about the simulated times, but ultimately it only matters when it happens on the circuit. But I'm very, very excited, and I think the fact that the piece has somehow been caught in an F1 Reddit page, which is quite nice. So thank you for the free publicity whoever did that. That's been quite useful to Racing News 365. So I take my cap off. So thank you very much. I can't wait. It's FE's make or break moment. If this doesn't work, then nothing will.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't mention this before, which makes the Gen 3 Evo car, I think, even faster than what it is. But those times are not on slick tyres that we're expecting. So the fact that they're on, road tyres and they're producing that lap time, imagine if we were on slick tyres, then you'd think the gap would be even, closer, potentially.
I think for the current cars, no, but it's also worth, taking into account that for Gen 4, obviously, Bridgestone aren't just going to be having one compound of tyres. We're going to be having, obviously, according to the render, it's going to be two. We're going to have this baseline compound for in the dry and the light rain, similar to F1 when even still on slick tyres, they can kind of keep going when rain starts to fall.
Like the Ultra Sauce back in the day.
Exactly. Bridgestone are then going to be having a so-called typhoon tyre for the conditions we saw in qualifying in Monaco on the Sunday, conditions we saw on the opening day in Tokyo, and of course then recently in Shanghai. So that's going to mean that the performance of the cars, and of course the fact there's going to be two aero packages as well, both high and low downforce packages. So it's going to have such a big impact on performance, but it's going to mean that whereas now when we see wet conditions, so much of the performance of the Gen 3 Evo is kind of sacrificed because the cars and more in particular the tyres just don't work in wet conditions, at least to the ability we want to see them. Come Gen 4, we're going to have a car and more importantly a tyre compound which will allow performance to still remain relatively competitive and still impressive to watch, whereas obviously now we don't have that. So it's going to be a case of, I think, let's just get through season 12. That's a way to see it, because this season's not been great. I don't think this has been particularly memorable in terms of all the Formula E's championships. Maybe next year will be the same. I think potentially, because I mean, I could see Ollie Rowland just running away with next season as well, to be honest. But it's Gen 4, and it's going to be when the team starts. It's similar to now with F1, the team's deciding when do we switch our focus to 2026 and the new regs. When will the FE teams kind of do the same? Will the likes of Jaguar, for example, come next year think, you know what, our Gen 3 Evo is just not going to win championships, let's maybe try and get a head start on Gen 4. That's going to be a really interesting thing, and I just think we need Gen 4 now. And I think on the topic of the calendar as well, it'll be interesting what venues not only stay but actually can stay from the safety point of view and can actually host Formula E when the cars are going to be, if they're going to be 10 seconds faster at Monaco, where think how much faster they're going to be, in other venues.
So we had Tobias on earlier, and he came up with the solution that, for races like Tokyo, for example, we don't have to run at the full 600 kilowatts. Like, you've got the potential to not run at
What's
600.
the point?
But that's in order to keep these places. And I suppose that was the question I had. But then he came back and he said, well, it doesn't matter. He said in Formula 1, for example, at the start of the races, we're 6 seconds a lap slower than what we are because of the high fuel. So we can show the all-out performance in qualifying, but in the race we don't have to. If we want to keep said cities that we've worked very hard to, for example Tokyo, the amount of time that Alberto put into to get in Tokyo on the calendar, and so you could potentially run at a lower to facilitate, to make it slightly safer, because it is true, this is a big upheaval for Formula E, because all of a sudden everything changes. Like, in terms of safety, you're 100% right, and going to tracks with adequate runoff areas potentially and so forth, and everything that Formula E has done to at this point, there needs to be the shift, and I don't know how big of a shift we've made already to prepare for Gen 4, and I don't think next season's calendar is a big shift to say, right, this is where we're heading, because there's still a lot of tight twisty, you think Sao Paulo, Tokyo, obviously we know London's going to go, but you've got to replace those tracks if you can't get them. So I think that's a big challenge for Formula E.
See, I disagree, in all honesty, because you look at the last few years and the circuits we've been transitioning to, and in particular looking into next season, of course, you've got a lot of permanent circuits there. You've, of course, got Mexico City. There'll be no problems there. You could even extend the circuit if needs. We're going to have Jarama, obviously, which is another permanent venue. Even if we obviously move, it's likely to be to another permanent venue in Spain. You then got Shanghai, a permanent venue. The Jeddah Corniche circuit, guess what? It's basically a permanent venue.
Yep.
The list goes on and on and on.
100%,
so
100%.
I don't think.
I agree with that.
I don't think, to be honest, that's going to be a massive problem. But again, also, if you look at, and I don't even think a lot of the current street tracks, London being the big exception, and probably Tokyo as well, but the likes of Sao Paulo, I don't see as being that much different. It's going to sound really silly, but to Monaco, Sao Paulo is wider than Monaco, but has more overtaking opportunities, probably more runoff. Well, it does have more runoff in a lot of places as well, in all fairness. So there's actually, I think there's less places which will need change than people might think. I think this is maybe just people probably panicking a little bit because we've not seen, and even Seb put it, this is the biggest jump in Formula E's history. It's to the point that it's making him now not only want to continue next season, but actually stick around for season 13, because the Gen 4 is genuinely exciting him because of how cool it's looking, how cool the simulations are, and just how positive the data is coming out from it. But it's also worth taking into account that, you know, Formula I think, are more prepared for Gen 4 than people realise. The fact that we are, 18 months out from the first race of Gen 4, which will most likely probably be in Sao Paulo, if obviously that keeps the season open a slot. And already they're releasing actually some pretty significant details on it. The fact the FIA have obviously today approved its technical regulations as well for Gen 4. These are big steps which are happening in a really good amount of time to give the teams time, and also the series itself enough time to start building a really good calendar which can host these Gen 4 cars. And I don't want to see them, to be honest. You mentioned the point of, you know, could they essentially be turned down in terms of, you know, what is the point? You know, Monaco, I would rather see the cars at their full potential, and if needs be the drivers, I guess, being forced to drive slower. It's no different than to F1. You're not seeing an F1 car giving it the full beans at Monaco, because if they do, they end up in, well, either the Sandoval ice cream shop or in the harbour.
Our favourite place.
Exactly, it's a very good ice cream shop.
It's
I can't remember the name of it, but a shout out to you, thank you very much. But it's more the point of, it's more just an additional challenge for the drivers to adjust to, but one that they will be, I think, very welcomed to adjust to, because they've all been wanting this step to happen, and finally we're going to get it.
Pico, anything to add before we let him go?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I'm going to echo what I said earlier. I'm just super excited for Gen 4. I think it looks really good. You know it's going to be good because John Jackson has said in the chat that Gen 4 is going to be liquid fire. So
thank you, John, for coming in.
That's how you know. There's like, John has said it'll be good. But yeah, no, it's honestly, it's going to be super exciting.
It's called Rossi, the ice cream shop. Sorry, Rossi. That's important.
Okay,
yeah.
Yes.
But yeah,
Valentino.
It didn't have banana. It didn't have banana ice cream though. Unfortunately, Jasmine was so happy last season. She had banana ice cream, and then I want the banana ice cream. We got there, no banana ice cream. So.
Yeah, but the thing is, well, too, fellas, this is me rambling a little bit. That's interesting about the calendar is obviously, for those who have noticed, the number of, despite the fact it's, you know, a record-breaking FE calendar, 18 rounds, there's actually less F1 clashes than there has been this season, for example. So this season we've had 6. For season 12, we're going to be having, let me get my memory right, we're going to be having Berlin clashing with Miami, which is right. I think we had Monaco and Miami clashing this year, so it's not a problem.
We'll
be having Sao Paulo, Abu Dhabi, and then it'll be Shanghai clashing with Silverstone, which is a bit of a.
So I'm going to need to get a new job before July next year. Otherwise, I'm gonna I won't be able to Shanghai because I mean this year for British Grand Prix the museum opens at like 7:00 in the morning, so not looking forward to that. So.
Well.
And then Tokyo clashes with Hungary. But in all fairness, we're increasing our calendar. Yet we have less clashes. So fair play, Effie.
Really good, really good. Nick, absolute pleasure having you on as always.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Right, we will see you later.
Bye.
What a show we're having. Right, let's get some fans on now. Remember, !Discord, if you want to come and have your say on the show, all you need to do is join the waiting room, and guess what? You'll be speaking to us. So, let's go do that with Seb. Hello, Seb, you're on the FE bar. How are you? Thank you for waiting.
Hello.
What would you like to talk about?
I was hoping to talk about the calendar again. I know it's been... I'll be honest, I've got a whole list here of my opinions on it.
Go on, reel them off.
Fire away.
Right. I'm really hoping Sao Paulo continues as a season opener. I hope it becomes a staple, like Monaco, go see that lot. I think it's a really good track. I know it's a bit Peloton-y, but if you ask me, there's like degrees of Peloton.
Yeah,
and
the right amount.
Paulo kind.
The sweet spot.
Because it's not crazy. Yeah, it's the sweet spot. It's the best kind, I'd say. So I hope it continues as the opener, because it's always a good vibe. With Miami, going to Hard Rock, as soon as Evo Sessions was announced, I knew it was going to be some sort of a test of the facilities.
Yeah, had to be.
Of the new permanent layouts. It was like one of my first thoughts, because if it's not going to be at Homestead anyway, why else would you go to the International Autodrome?
Yep.
Probably as a test for next year.
100%. It had to be a test.
This one might be maybe a bit controversial, but I'm honestly not too sure on Harama.
Yep.
I'm always unsure. I mean,
The
obviously,
drivers loved it. Like Pico was there. Like I don't know if Pico wants to say anything on Kurama.
Me, Nick, and Jack Smith from Motorsport Week, we walked the circuit the morning of test day 1, and my word, it is such a cool old school circuit.
No, I'm not saying I'm not too sure on it because of the circuit.
But it's definitely an interesting choice, and like Nick said, the facilities there aren't spectacular, and so there is one main grandstand, and that's sort of it looks very sort of out of late 70s, early 80s sort of. And then there's like a smattering of places around.
So what's
the
your
circuit.
main concern then with Jahama?
My main thing with Harama, I would say, I mean, obviously you were there as well. The regen chicane they had to put in, it looks very, very tight. So if they have that again for a race, I mean, again with the mock race, I don't know how that looked, but from what I've seen, like photos and videos and stuff, it is a very tight chicane.
Yeah. So with the with the chicane, because they were basically putting it in as we finished walking around, and Scott Elkins was there installing it, and so we had
by himself.
He was genuinely just there, just like making sure everything was all good. We had a nice chat with Scott. But the thing is, we thought it would be a lot tighter than it was, but it wasn't actually too bad.
I have a feeling.
The thing is, for a test event, sure. When it comes to a race event, I'm not sure how it's going to be, and I completely get that the concern.
What about comparing it to the Valencia one?
If I'm thinking about a chicane that was sort of put in, sort of because they had to, and they tried utilising the space and it didn't really work, I'm thinking Mexico City Season 2, and we saw what happened with that. But
in terms of the size,
obviously Formula E has changed in the last 10 years, so it's not going to be anywhere near as bad as that. And I don't think anyone went into the barrier at any point. But the fact is that was a test session, and this is going to be a race next year. So I do sort of get the worry.
Yeah, in terms of the size though, like compare it to the Valencia, was it meant different to the Valencia?
Nowhere near as big. Nowhere near as big.
Because the Miami one was quite tight, but maybe that was on the Valencia one, so maybe that one was a bit more tighter then. So yeah, good issue. Next issue you had.
It is it's kind of the whole thing with not as bad as Homestead, but it's not really that close to Madrid. So what's the thing with the accessibility then? Because would it just be driving then? Yeah, that's not really too good in my eyes.
It's about 20 minutes north of Madrid. It's the thing is, where they're building the Madrid at the moment, that's in Madrid, but it's like
it's by the airport, because I went there.
It's by the airport, and the airport is it's sort of similar with Heathrow to London, although Madrid is a lot smaller.
Is it by the
London.
airport? Because I don't know. I don't know if I go. I know it's only one day. That's the only thing that's annoying. But then
IFEMA is not too far from the airport in Madrid.
It's so the Madrid is literally couple blocks over.
That's the Madrid. I'm thinking Jahama.
Yeah, but Harama is about 20-minute drive north of Madrid. And
also,
so,
a bit off topic. Yeah. I'm sorry, but Madrid is such a terrible name. I'm sorry.
But it's
Madrid. It could be a Madrid.
Okay. But what was wrong with just Madrid ring? Like the Hockenheim ring? Because Madrid just sounds dumb.
The
combo doesn't work.
It's
a bad name.
Imagine if it's a crazy track.
No.
Oh, he went off at a mad ring.
It is a crazy track. That's the thing. The Madrid is a very insane circuit, and I don't know how Formula One are calling that no, not a Gen 1, a Grade 1 circuit, because it's crazy. I mean, like the fact that the promotional video that came out a few months ago, and the best lap that they could do is a lap where they couldn't get the chicane right.
Oh, that was
Shows
hilarious when I
how
watched that. I actually laughed.
Yeah. But yeah, Harama, I'd say, is a better circuit than the Madring. But it's a little bit more out the way.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's sort of like, it's sort of like holding. Actually, you know what it is? It's exactly like holding the London E-Prix at Brands Hatch.
I say fair play.
Sort of thing.
Right. Well, any more
sort of
issues
like-
that we had with the calendar?
I mean, personally, I know we have bad memories of that Valencia race, but
Yeah.
honestly, because like Nick was saying, like kind of what Nick was saying, this is definitely a stopgap for next year. Well, not next year, for like 2026. No, 27. I've forgotten what year we're in for a second. This is definitely a stopgap for 2027 because I feel like
This calendar
it's definitely
is
stopgap
for,
for like
the year of
Barcelona or
our
like
Lord.
Montjuic.
Yeah. So the calendar's just come out for the year of our Lord, 2025, and the year
Yeah, I
of
forgot
our
what
Lord,
year we were in for a second. It
2026.
confused me.
Indeed.
I'm thinking too far ahead.
Yep.
I feel
Perfect.
like for a stopgap, I would have had Valencia because they do preseason testing there. They know it more. The chicane's not as
It
tight,
is-
and there's a train station, so I can get there easily because I don't have a driving license yet.
Yeah,
But the trains are not very regular there.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's what I was about to say.
Well,
The
not very
trains
I know
are
that-
not great.
I know they open the
But-
station on event days, but
Yeah,
I'm guessing they would.
Yeah, I mean, like, as a few people know, I have been a taxi in the past for
For
Valencia. Yeah, you, Jasmine, Nigel. I saw Nigel the other day. He came to the museum. Yeah, Dov. I think I've taken Toby once or twice or something like that, but I'm not sure. But yeah,
The paddock
yeah,
taxi driver
yeah.
for the media. Bum bum bum. Don't know
Yeah.
why I did that. Right. So, any other issues?
It was mainly just that, to be honest. I think other than that, it's a pretty solid calendar, I would
No, I
say.
think it's-
I'm quite happy with it.
I think it's okay.
I'm hoping we don't lose one of the TBCs.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Jakarta stays. I think it's an alright circuit. Sanya, we'll have to see. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it works with these cars, maybe it doesn't. I suppose we will have to see.
It's like a mini. It's like a mini experiment. I feel.
I'm not I know that China's a big market and everything, but did we fill the stands at Shanghai? I know that China is a big country, but did we fill the stands at Shanghai?
No.
Is there a need for a second race? And that second race is a very hard race to get to.
I feel like it's more for sponsors, isn't it? It feels like it's more
Yeah,
for trying to make
it's-
money via
yeah,
marketing.
It's not a great one, but yeah, no, I
and
completely
via-
agree with
via
Jakarta.
sponsoring.
I think Jakarta is one of the best circuits on the calendar, and I think it's one of the best races on the calendar as well.
Really quickly, who replaces Nick Cassidy at Jaguar for you, Seb?
Ooh. Considering like if people leave or not, I would say obviously with Cassidy being rumored of heading to a Stellantis team, the only person I can think of being kicked out of a Stellantis team to make way for him is Jake Hughes. And if Hughes goes to Jaguar just for 1 year, for one, I don't want to wish it on him because Jaguar are they're a bit terrible at the moment. I'm glad I'm now a Nissan guy. But if that's where Hughes has to go, then I probably guess Hughes going to Jaguar then, because I'm not really sure who else would slot into there or who else would leave. I don't think Ticton would go to Jaguar because I think he'd just stick at Kiro because if they properly link up with Porsche in Gen 4, I think Kiro would be very strong with the new car if Porsche nail it again.
It's a good point. It's a very, very good point. Well made. So he's probably working out quite well for Dan Ticton, and his patience is finally maybe paying off. But Seb, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for waiting.
No worries, thank you.
No worries. Right, let's get Saz in. No, I've just picked Seb again. Can't click. Saz.
Welcome to the FE bar. How are you? Hopefully you can hear us. I know Saz is in chat. I know Saz is in chat. So Saz, we'll give Saz a couple of seconds to unmute and learn how the computer works. She's pulled herself down.
Saz has taken herself away. Unmuted herself. I'll try her again now that she's unmuted herself.
Hello, Saz. We can hear you.
There we go.
Loud and clear.
Yes. That's worked.
How are you? What would you like to talk about?
I'm very good. I'm Shiny, and I would like to talk about Harama.
Go on then.
Well, hang on. Why are you Shiny?
Because I'm happy. Shiny is just a word I use.
Okay. I thought like, you're going out. You put some glitter on, like something like that.
I mean, I've got a bit of a tan, but finally.
Yeah.
From the F1 race.
I don't tan. I burn.
Yeah. I mean. Yeah, unfortunately, I am sitting here in my PJs, so definitely not going out.
Yep.
Sorry, it's just a word I've used for ages, just to describe.
She said it on the show for a long time.
Yeah, it's right.
You just picked it up for the first time. You're like, why are you shiny? Give me a reason.
I picked it up.
First time you listen to me.
That is a lie. I've just gone full autism tonight, so. That's good to know.
Good to know. Anyway, what would you like to talk about, Saz?
I'll have glitter on.
Yeah.
Then I'll be really shiny.
Yeah.
Indeed. What would you like to talk about? Harama, as you said.
Yes, Harama. And yay, race in Spain. Yep. I was hoping for Valencia, but I'll take it. It can't work. But what I'm worried about is, are they actually going to promote Harama? As you say, it does seem very clear it's a stopgap option.
Yeah.
And whilst there's a motorsports culture in Spain, there's no Spanish drivers in Formula E. I mean, maybe you get Sasha next year and you can have an Argentinian, which is not Spanish, but, there's an affection there. But I think if they don't promote it, people aren't going to go because they're not going to know about it. It's like even on the FE website, it says, "Oh, you can watch it in Spain on DMAX." And it's like, no, you can't. I've looked on that website, on that TV show's website. There is no mention of Formula E anywhere, and I've looked.
Okay, mate, but I was quite impressed actually. When I was in Valencia 2 years ago, like they opened up for the fans to go, and I was quite impressed with the number of fans that turned up. So maybe there is a half decent. I know you said there's a good motorsport culture, but that they turned up for a test day, and maybe there wasn't like any hospitality. To be fair, it was not like there was any food vendors, for these, for like people food. They've all brought their own packed lunches and so forth, and I was quite impressed. So maybe it might work.
They're still going to have to promote it because Harama is. As you said, it's not in Madrid. But it's not that far out. I think there is a bus there. I hope there is. If not, someone wants to give me a lift. That would be great. But I think if people don't know about it, it was like when I was in London last year. Other people maybe had different opinions, but I didn't see anything on about the e-pricks until a week later. But if Formula E wants this to be big, put it on the metros, get on the socials, because people from Madrid will come, but it's gonna. And we've said this before. A lot of problem with Formula E is the promotion rather than the racing or anything else.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like when I was in Miami, you had no idea Formula E was on. Like in the city centre, there was nothing. You would never have known that Formula E was in town. So, and that was one of the big issues that was mentioned within the Formula E paddock between drivers, media, and obviously team personnel, was that there was the lack of promotion, which viewed with the amount of tickets that was sold, like the tickets that were sold was probably the least ever Formula E had ever sold in Miami. So that is important. It is important, and obviously there needs to be some form of selling point. And you're right, with no Spanish driver, it's harder to sell. But I do think obviously there is a strong motorsport. So I reckon just a fair bit of hey, we're in town. You know, you've got F1 coming soon, but we're also here. Could be enough.
And also,
to simply...
we beat F1 by a matter of months of bringing a World Championship event to Madrid. So we take the we
were here first.
We actually sort of take away Formula One sort of first World Motorsport event in first World Championship motorsport race in Madrid, and we just pinch it off Formula One. And thank you, Harama.
As long as they promote that, the event will be a success. But otherwise, it could end up being a Madrid with like low ticket sales because only people who sort of know about it are going to go. And as it's only a single header, I'm not sure how many people. Yeah, it's closest to the airport, but how many people are going to travel in when you can? If you're in Europe, you can travel to all the other races in Europe are double headers, which makes it more worth your time if you have to travel from a different country.
So, I've just seen a message in chat, sorry Saz, that has just Harry Jones about the NFL in Miami. He said, and I'm just thinking that weekend would be Pro Bowl, because I'm an NFL fan, up the Chicago Bears, bear down. I think that would be Pro Bowl weekend, so I reckon, but obviously you got set up, but hopefully not too much of an issue, but yeah, I'm sure that would have been discussed. But a really good point there, Harry. It caught my eye. But yeah, Saz, go back to Spain, and I honestly,
my thing, but yay, your team.
Yeah. I think the event. Yeah, I think if it's just got some decent advertising, and they do, like, at the moment I get so much advertising, but I think it's because I'm so into Formula E that like every YouTube video is like an ad for the London E3, but then it says like the championship's going to go down to the wire, and you get like Tom Brooks saying that, and I'm like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You made that a long time ago, and it's just simply not going to happen. But yeah, I think they'll fill the grandstands, and if it is quite a small grandstands, maybe tickets will be, you know, even if the grandstands are small, you'd rather them be full than not full.
Yeah, definitely. I think it won't take much of promotion, but they've got to do some promotion, which, as we said, you know, like Miami, you'd have no idea it's in town. If people in Madrid know it's in town, you'll get people going.
100%. Right, Saz, we're gonna have to let you go because we're running a little bit short on time. But thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll speak to you after Jakarta.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
And you. Right, let's get good old Ricardo in. Hi, Ricardo. You're on the FE bar. How are you?
Hello, guys. How are you?
Feeling very good? Very well. We're very happy. What are your thoughts on the calendar? What would you like to discuss?
Yeah, the calendar is quite good, actually. Good thing, and I noticed one thing, that they are rotating the penultimate rounds between some Asia or Americas and Berlin. I think it's good, but the calendar as a whole, it's good. I'm most intrigued about the two TVCs.
Go on.
So I think straight away, one TVC, which will be the second TVC. It's before Shanghai. I think it's gonna be Jakarta.
So you think that
most likely?
Jakarta? Yep.
Yeah, I think it is. And if we have a good race in Jakarta this season, I think it's pretty much nailed on, unless there is some political issues or that kind of thing. But the other one, I don't know. I saw you and the other guys talking about Sanya.
Yep.
But personally, I think Sanya won't fit, because why do we have Shanghai then? 2 races in China.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be more.
Formula E just love China.
Yeah, I know. They in the past they had Hong Kong and China. Yeah. But
they see it as such a big market that they feel 2 races. They need 2 races in China because they see it as just that big of a market.
Yeah, and maybe in the future, in like Gen 5, we could maybe get a Xiaomi Formula E team. maybe, or a BYD or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
Well,
but I
famously, we've
think
had
the other
Neo,
TBC,
the famous
yeah,
Chinese
we
thing
had
that we've
Neo,
had for a very long
yeah,
time.
yeah, but we are more on the verge that to get a fixed Chinese brand like a Xiaomi or a BYD
Yeah.
than Neo was in the past, because Neo was stable for until season 7, and then they fell apart.
Yeah.
To be honest, but yeah, on the TBCs, I think one of them will be Jakarta,
Yep.
the race before Shanghai. It makes sense in the logistical sense, let's say.
Yep.
And the other one, I think it could maybe open up a race in Europe.
In Europe.
But I know, and more specifically, I think it maybe a return to Italy could be on the cards.
Okay.
I don't know, but personally, I would like it.
Yeah.
In
Which is
previous
fine.
FE bars, it's fine, and Italy is one of the big pillars, is one of the gems of Formula E in the past. So Rome, yeah, Misano wasn't that good, maybe, but Rome was amazing.
Rome
Since his first race to the last.
Rome was incredible.
Yeah,
I'm not expecting. I was going to ask you actually, because obviously there's been a lot of talk about Cape Town.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Alberto Longo, and they still travel to Cape Town. They still try and work on getting Cape Town, but what was it? Season 9, Pico? Season 9, season 8, season 9?
Cape Town was 9.
Season 9, right? So we're now coming to season 12. So it weren't on 10. It wasn't on 11. It's not on 12. So that's 3 years they've been trying to work on getting Cape Town back. But it's not happening. Is it a bit of a disappointing that one of these TBCs is not Cape Town?
Yeah, maybe because personally I think Cape Town was a blast. Was million times better that we had that race in Homestead, for example, and the track itself is so good that I wasn't actually thinking about Cape Town because I saw the race before that first TBC is in, I think it's Monaco.
Yep.
Then logically you would go for a race in Europe still, and then Jakarta to go before Shanghai. It was more logical, but if Cape Town could be on the calendar, I would be more than happy.
Yeah.
Because it's a good track, drivers love it, and I think it could bring up another banger like season 9.
100%. No, I fully agree. For me, I hope if Jakarta doesn't happen for whatever reason, I hope there's scope to move the Sanya race to the June segment, because I think it's kind of stupid going from May back and so forth. You can kind of keep the cars in the same region. You'll be shipping them back to and it goes against this kind of calendar feel at the moment. But I don't know what you want to say, Pico, if there's anything you want to add.
I think a European race would be interesting. I know that we have sort of like these sort of like backup races where like we could potentially go, because obviously we've had Valencia fill in before in the COVID year. Marrakesh has been the go-to replacement race over the years. It replaced Vancouver about 8 weeks out. I think it was in season 8. We got the call that Vancouver wasn't happening, and they decided to put Marrakesh in its place in the first week of July. And we got the coldest weekend though, so I'm happy with that, because that was the year that I did it, and it was a nice cool 30. It was a nice cool 35 degrees.
Yeah.
Whereas the 2 weekends either side of that were 45. So
happy days.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'd be surprised if either Sanya or Jakarta doesn't happen. Whereas because they're races that have gone on in the past. Whereas last year when we had the TBC race that dropped out, we hadn't been to Thailand before, we hadn't been to Chiang Mai, and so that was a bit more of an unknown. Whereas I think Indonesia is a big base for Formula E, and they've had quite a lot of people go to the races there, and so yeah, I'm fairly certain that those two will stick around.
And also,
for next year.
I feel like because of the Asian sort of market, and it looks like the race is scheduled. You've got the Americas, then you've got Saudi Arabia, and then Europe, and then you've got Asia towards the end, and then we come back to London to finish it all off, bringing it home basically, before we all finish. So I do think, especially from what Tobias has said and what Nick has said, that we're definitely looking at Sanya and Jakarta as those two that will be there. Is there anything else you would like to add, Ricardo, before we let you go?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Don't have much more to talk about. And,
thank you so much for waiting, though.
Yes,
And,
no problem. No problem.
Hopefully, we'll speak to you after Jakarta.
One thing I will say.
Yep.
I'm betting all my cards on a Da Costa win in Jakarta.
Oh.
If it doesn't win, I'm gone. Because
You're gone. That's a lot. That's big. I'm gone. If he doesn't win,
kidding,
I'm out.
But
I'm never watching this series
I'm
again.
putting my feelings on Porsche and Da Costa.
Yeah.
Because in season 9 they were good. In season 8, Da Costa personally was pretty good in Jakarta, and Antonio is feeling more at one with the car. So if he doesn't win in Jakarta, he doesn't win this season. I think.
I was going to say Portuguese bias, but that's a big statement. So if he doesn't win in Jakarta, he's never going to win another race this season. That's mad. He could
because Olmsted was a race that should have won 200%,
but that wasn't his
1,000,000%. And then the red flag.
Fault. He would have won that.
Yeah, but it's pretty much it's the story of the Costa season. He has a super mega chance to win the race, and then something out of nowhere happens, and he doesn't win the race.
I know.
Either controllable or out of his control.
He has been a bit unlucky. He has indeed. All right, Ricardo, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys. Cheers.
Oh, we've had a show. We've got 5 minutes left, and technically there's no one left in the waiting room. So if you wanna join in the waiting room, we might sneak you on for a minute.
If anyone wants to jump,
so if anyone wants to join, you can. We did have Blake. I was trying to let Blake come on, but Blake seems to have disappeared. So if you do want to come back on, like just pop in. But what I want to talk about before we go is I do want to talk about with you and was the Nick Cassidy thing. Because we didn't actually get to talk about who could replace him in the last FE bar, and I thought it was I wanted to bring that because it is a talking point, because someone does have to replace Nick Cassidy. And for me, I don't know who replaces Nick Cassidy at this precise moment, and there's been a lot of talk about Dan Ticktum. For me, I can fully see Dan potentially going to Jaguar, and I'm right. If you think about what Nick said earlier, you could. Porsche could Jaguar could put all their eggs into the Gen 4 basket and go, right, let's make a car for Gen 4. And then you think, okay, so it could be the right place to be. However, with the Porsche deal, and if they get the Porsche powertrain of Porsche strong, then Dan Ticktum is in line to get a great seat and have a really good chance. So then maybe he might want to stick. So then who goes to Jaguar?
Yeah, I feel like it's sort of like the right time for Dan, because he's sat in that team, and I mean, no disrespect to that team. That team is they're proper fighters, and they're finally reaping their rewards with a podium in Tokyo, what should have been a podium in Shanghai, and so yeah, it's finally coming good. But the thing is, if Ticktum turns down Jaguar, I'd be shocked, because that's a factory seat going. Yeah. And yeah, sure, Jaguar have struggled, but it's a proper. And I mean, like, no disrespect to Cooper Kiro, but that's a huge team, and a team that has been competitive for the past 6 years. And so I think for anyone to sort of turn that opportunity down, it would be a bit of a stupid move. It is $1 million question. who is going to be sitting in that Jaguar seat next year when it looks like Cassidy's moving on. Obviously, we haven't had official confirmation, but it's looking extremely likely that Cassidy's going to be project. And if Cassidy's looking at Stellantis, then do they do a little swapsy and put Jake Hughes in the seat? Jake has been mega in his time at McLaren. He's had a very up and down year in Maserati. He obviously got I think it was a 4th place in Shanghai. He was on the podium in Jeddah, and I think he's had another top 5. But those are the only times he's been in the top 10 all year. Yeah. And so it's the thing is, I can't see them going for like a rookie. I can't see them going for a rookie.
Yep.
It's my brutally honest opinion.
I think I can. I think it's the perfect opportunity for them to go for a rookie. I'll tell you why. I think
it's definitely the perfect opportunity, but I'm not sure if Jaguar go for it.
But right.
Hear me out. Right, go for it.
Hear me out. Gen 4's on the horizon, right? Gen 4 is on the horizon. They could try and find a name. I don't know who this name could be. Danny Fiat, for example. He's looking for a driver. I'm not saying it's going to be him, right? But if they think that their car's useless and is not going to be fighting for race wins, then the Gen 3, either that season's the perfect... There's no pressure on you, son. Go out there. Drive. Get used to Formula E. We don't care about your results. As long as you're fairly competitive. Like, don't be like last place. But show us some promise. And then you go, right. You've had that year's development. You're going to go to Gen 4. Yes, it's a step up, but it's a step up for everybody. Not just you. And off you go. You've got a year's experience learning the team, getting to grips with the Formula E way of thinking and how it works. And then, bingo bango, Gen 4, this driver could be ready to start being on a competitive level and winning races. So I think for that reason, it's a perfect chance to put a rookie in.
I think it would make sense. I mean, chat has got to say, John has said announced Acosta. Sergio Perez has just been mentioned as well. Possibility.
Cadillac.
Yeah, it's well, it depends on who Cadillac go for. Yes, Checo's. I won't say he's in the hot seat for Cadillac, but he's up for consideration. But yeah, there are a fair few options, and I'm not sure if it's a nice place for Jaguar to find themselves in, because obviously they are losing a driver. But if they've got the options, I know that people have said Taylor Barnard as well. Try and poach him from the Ian James team, which isn't going to be called McLaren. And so, yeah, there are plenty of options, and yeah, I could see a rookie go into that seat, but realistically, I'm not sure. That's the thing.
Sure. I don't know. I honestly don't know who takes this seat, and obviously there's going to be a few driver merry-go-rounds, probably, and that could help us sort of pinpoint who Jaguar could go for, and so forth. But I do think anything could happen with that seat. With Nick Cassidy going, and we don't know what's going around with Taylor Barnard, just to end up on, because he's Formula E's hottest property, right? We're assuming if you're Nissan, if you can't sign him, then that's when we say we put a Sergio Sette Camera in, or a Victor Martins, potentially. But it depends
on how Sette's going to do. And actually, it's been big day for Formula E news. Yeah. You haven't even mentioned it, that Sette has been confirmed that Sergio's going to be in the seat for
which is probably
Berlin, which we all knew. I mean, we've mentioned it 500,000 times on this show, but it was officially announced today, amongst other things.
So that's potentially a trial for next season for Sergio. And obviously Nissan have got a driver in-house where they can just promote from within. But Taylor's hot property, right? Sure, if you're Nissan, you want to go into Gen 4 with Taylor and Oliver, like, that makes sense. But if you're Jaguar, you've got the uncertainty, well, not the uncertainty because he's contracted to the Ian James team, but there's still uncertainty. I said you break the bank, right? And you break the bank and you go get Taylor and you go say, right, this is our guy going forward. Yeah, we've got Mitch. unsure about Mitch and Nissan for whatever reason, which could be, that stopgap driver for next season with maybe a Sete Camera or even Norman Nato if they want to continue with him, go and get Taylor.
Yeah. I'm just seeing where else everyone's put. Sheldon van der Linde, Rui Andrade. I mean, he hasn't had a test in a Formula E car. Maybe might see him in the rookie test. I think if they are going to go for a rookie, that Jaguar will field them at the rookie test, surely in Berlin. But
which they haven't.
Fittipaldi. I'm not sure if that's Pietro or Enzo. Is Enzo still in F2, or has he moved on from F2?
Don't ask me.
Don't
ask
me.
Yeah, I don't watch F2 enough.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously Pietro had a couple races in the Haas F1 when Grosjean had his accident a few years ago. But yeah, I mean that could be an option. Dragovic could be an option. I can't see Pourchaire getting it, considering that DS signed him as a development driver a few weeks ago.
But then that doesn't mean much.
I've been told today that Simon Pagenaud is now managing Théo Pourchaire, so that might be Théo's chance to get back into IndyCar. So yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I suppose.
That's the thing. It's a very sort of open-ended
question.
Yeah, it's an open book, and genuinely, you could go around half a dozen people, and they could have completely different answers.
Indeed. Right, that is the show. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already,
finishing somewhat on time.
Yeah, if you haven't already, !Discord, and get in the Discord, join a real budding, growing Formula E community that we have in there. If you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. It's free, right? Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to our members that have been in chat. So we've had Chris, we've had Ricardo, we've had Saz, we've had Lou in. So thank you very much to you guys as well for being members. We love you. We appreciate you. And thank you so much for watching. So we'll be back for the FE Bar after the Jakarta E Prix on Monday the 23rd. Monday the 23rd of June. So thank you so much for watching.
8 p.m.
8 p.m. and we will see you then. Good night.